Everybody, we're back with Dr. Serrano, and today we're going to talk about cortisol. So, Dr. Serrano, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to talk about cortisol. Most people think cortisol as the enemy or a fat-causing hormone. Actually, cortisol is made by the adrenal glands, and actually is released when the brain sends norepinephrine, okay, or epinephrine, okay, either one of those two, but usually it's this one. And if you are in an emergency, the brain says, oh my God, we're stressed, I'm going to release epinephrine that actually is released by the same gland, and it goes and makes cortisol. Cortisol is the response to stress. Now, cortisol is absolutely necessary. Without it, you're dead. Actually, cortisol is made on the adrenal glands, and the adrenal glands is the only organ that receive blood from 3 arteries, so receive half of its weight on blood. That's how important that is, because you have to have constant blood to it. People forget about it because of the bean size on top of the kidneys. Now, when we make cortisol, if John is going to grab me because it is so big, I'm going to get scared, my cortisols are going to go up, right? Or if John said, call the area, we got to go do legs. I'll be very scared of John, my cortisol levels will go up. Now, most people associate cortisol with the enemy that if I have high cortisols, I'm going to gain fat. That is absolutely true in a person that has chronic stresses. But for the people that are going to work out, I'm going to be actually talking about workout benefits and workout not the benefits. John brought a paper stating that when you eat carbohydrates, what happens to cortisol levels? Well, cortisol and insulin are absolutely enemies. Cortisol is a catabolic, meaning it breaks down, and insulin is an anabolic. So John brought the point that he wants to know, most people talk about not taking carbohydrates, not doing this or that before workouts. There are instances that I do want you to consume carbohydrates before workouts. One is, A, when you want to gain size. 2, when I have somebody that's overstressed. And overstressed means that person has a job that he has to work every day, he's married, has kids, something going on in their life. Those people, they want to get lean, actually do require to sometimes eat carbohydrates. The reason they want to eat carbohydrates before a workout is because it raises insulin, causing cortisol to go down. Now, most people say, well, how often can I do that? Well, the key is to lower cortisol all the time, not 1 or 2 days, because if you don't lower it, then you really tend to gain fat. So actually cortisol is the enemy. Now, is cortisol also beneficial? Well, what happens when you work out? You break down muscle. So absolutely, you require cortisol, because if I'm breaking down too much muscle tissue, that sends a signal to stress, then insulin goes down, because I'm breaking too much down muscle, and cortisol goes up, okay? Eventually, insulin will take over cortisol, but that's what happens. So you got to be careful. You always require cortisol at certain levels, and you always require to manipulate. You can manipulate cortisol by eating carbohydrates and proteins at the same time. That's why we know now that it's better to consume proteins and carbohydrates before workouts, okay? And also after workouts, and even during your workout, because you prevent breakdown, okay? Now, I want to say this. Cortisol comes from cholesterol. Okay, I want you guys to know that. And if you don't eat enough fats, okay, the body feels a stress, so you need to consume certain fat. That will be another lecture another time. But for now, if you want to gain size, you want to reduce those cortisol acutely and chronically, you need to consume carbohydrates before you work out. Now, one thing that John didn't brought up is how many carbohydrates do I need to do this? And I know most people go, oh, you need 100 grams, or you need 200 grams. It's absolutely bull. You don't need that much. Actually, the literature actually says between 15 to 25 grams. That's all you need. Okay? So you don't require that much. Now, I'm talking about normal population and some bodybuilders out there. If you only train all day and you don't do anything else, then you might require more. But that's how much you need to prevent cortisol rises all the time, and 2, to keep muscle size. Okay. Any questions, John?
Well, you talked about the 100 and 200 grams there at the end, and I see people get much, much less sore. There's a direct correlation from what I see anecdotally based on how much carbohydrate they can actually handle. Some people just can't handle that much.
Yes.
I have some people, real big guys that can handle 100, 150 grams, And that's where it seems like there's this like superhuman level of repair where they're not getting sore. So
Okay, now, John brought two different things. They consume carbohydrates and they don't get sore. Now, assume, remember I told you that insulin is the building muscle, the anabolic hormone, cortisol, the breaking down hormone. Insulin, as soon as you eat carbohydrates or proteins with high level leucine, you have an increase in insulin, which will prevent breakdown, so it will decrease soreness. Okay, is it cortisol lowering, or is it that we're consuming carbohydrates? Now, you talk about size. Depending on the size of the person, that's going to tell you how much carbohydrates you do take. For example, an average person like Dr. Jordan, and I want you to point the camera to Dr. Jordan. Jordan, will you mind standing up? Jordan weighs about 100 pounds, okay?
125.
125, okay? So he's a guy that weighs 125. He actually, on his liver has about 120 to 200, and this is high for him, grams of carbohydrate, okay? In his muscle mass is about 10%. So he has about another 40 grams so he requires about 160 grams a day of carbohydrates to keep his levels up. Now a bigger guy, then on the liver maybe like 200 to 300, and I have a 6'11" football player here to my right that weighs 330, okay? Stand up so they can see it. This guy now, his liver is much larger, he has more muscle mass, so he has going to have between 200 and 300 grams of carbohydrates in the muscle. So this guy requires higher levels because he absolutely is bigger size, so he requires higher levels. So depending on the size of that person, yes, your assumption is correct. I do need more carbohydrates, okay? So the more muscle mass, the leaner you are, the more carbohydrates you will need. So I agree with you there. Now, do you require, now I'm going to bring something else. John, let's suppose that you do 10 sets of 10 of squats, and it's your maximum weight that you can do 10 sets and 10 reps. I mean, you're suffering. You're doing a John Mills workout, and that guy weighs 200 pounds, right? And most people think, oh, because I worked out that hard, I burn a lot of calories. A guy your size, 10 sets of 10, will burn about 200 calories, 250 calories at tops, okay? I want you guys to understand this. What? 200? That's all you burn. You don't burn crap when you're working out. People think, oh, I get on my bike and the bike says I burn 400 calories. Shit, I have to tie you to the back of my truck so you can burn 400 calories, okay? So I burn 250 calories. Assume that 250 calories are all carbohydrates, 100% carbohydrates, which is not possible. It's never possible to be 100% carbohydrates, okay? Now, if I burn 100% carbohydrates, 250 calories, 25 divided by 4 is what? That's 20, 50, right?
60 grams.
60 grams. So 60 grams of carbohydrate. That is still way under what we require. So I want you guys to understand that. Now, of course, the bigger the person, the more calories you're going to burn, of course. But let's suppose a 6'2" guy, a John Mills true size, actually, he will burn about 300, maybe 350, because he will have to move more muscle mass. That is still giving between 70 to 80 grams. So that's still not that much. That is if you burn 100% carbohydrate. In reality, you burn between 40 to 50% carbohydrates. So this will be about 35 grams. The rest, the other 50%, is between proteins and fats. So I just want to teach you that. You do not require as much as you think you do, but then the breakdown of your consumption should be between fats, carbohydrate, and protein. Now, most people consume shitty fats, okay, of course that's different, but if I'm going to work out, MCTs are excellent before a workout because why? They're absolutely available for you, and that'd be great to keep muscle size. Okay.